Newsclip TV, your community news website.
Welcome to Green TV. I'm your host, Peter Ormond, and today we're here with Cindy Mayer from Canadians Opposed to Water Fluoridation. Cindy, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you very much, and thank you for inviting me on your show, Peter. It's great to be here.
I've been concerned about fluoridated drinking water for a long time, and for those that aren't aware of it, maybe you could explain why it is an issue.
It is an issue for a lot of Canadians. I think that a lot of Canadians are just becoming aware of some of the health and environmental risks that we're taking by continuing with this practice. There's a few different issues that come to mind. One of them is that we're getting more fluoride. We're being overdosed with this now compared to 60 years ago when this practice first began. There's fluoride in a lot of different sources, foods and beverages that are processed in fluoridated communities, even the toothpaste. I mean, we have a lot of sources of fluoride, and I think we need to be concerned about that. It's also the type of fluoride that we're using. It's a concern. It's actually a hazardous waste product that's being used, and most people are not aware of that. I think if you gave most people the choice and the education to go along with that, they'd probably choose not to drink fluoridated water. For sure.
The one thing that I always ask is, what percentage of Canadians receive fluoridated drinking water?
Right now, the percentage is about 33%. If you go on StatsCan, you'll see that there's 67% Canadians that do not have fluoridated drinking water. And that includes most of Quebec, most of BC, very small percentage in those provinces. Yukon, the Nunavut, Northwest Territories don't have any fluoride. So
what about Europe?
Europe has only about 2% of water fluoridated. That's right. Now in Europe, you may get some of the pro-fluoride people arguing, saying, well, they fluoridate their salt, but it's very limited where that salt fluoridation is taking place, and it is a choice because the fluoride that's put into the salt in Europe is not put in all of the salt that's manufactured. It's put in the salt that is used for home consumption. So it's not going to be in all your products you buy or restaurant food and that kind of thing. It's just at home, and if you choose, then you can use it.
Right.
So it's not like everyone's exposed to it. You have a bit of choice there.
So basically in Europe, 2% of Europeans drink fluoridated drinking water. And here,
pretty much.
In Ontario, how many people are?
Yeah, Ontario has a pretty large percentage, and I don't know off the top of my head what that is, but I'm pretty sure it's 40 or 50%, because there's quite a few communities in Ontario that are fluoridating. But the one thing that I want to mention, because I think that some people will go on the Health Canada website and they'll see that their stats are a little bit different, but Health Canada is still using StatsCan numbers from 2005, and that's previous to a lot of communities that have ended fluoridation. So
really?
The amount of fluoridated communities, the amount of percentage of Canadians that are receiving fluoridated water now is decreasing, quite a bit. So.
By how much, or do you have some examples?
Well, there's about 40 communities over the last couple of decades, or even less than that have ended fluoridation. And there's quite a few communities, even in Ontario, that never have fluoridated. For example, Kingston, they've had I think they had fluoride in their water for a year or two back in the 70s, and that's it. They've been fluoride free for many years. A lot of other communities in Ontario.
Yeah, like recently Calgary, Waterloo.
That's right. In Waterloo, they voted to discontinue fluoride. Calgary, that was a decision made by the councillors. They had been discussing that issue for years, and a lot of the councillors have been re-elected, so they've been there a few terms where this issue has been, in the forefront. And they decided that it was time.
That's
people
great.
just wanted out. They've had several, plebiscites to end fluoridation in Calgary, and then just, it never went through. So.
And now it's happened.
That's
so
right.
I wonder, why is the government, why are we still fluoridating our drinking water? Why does the government have these organizations to support it?
I think it's embarrassing for a lot of these organizations to back off and say, gee, what we've done in the past is maybe not the best choice for dental health. That's what it's put in the water for. The research has changed in the last number of years. Starting back in about 99, 98, there were some studies that came out that showed that no longer did they believe that the benefit is systemic, that the benefit is actually topical. So that means, as the fluoridated water passes over your teeth, that's supposed to give us some kind of a benefit. Well, a lot of us now are thinking, well, if there is no benefit to drinking it, then, why are we ingesting it? Because there are some health risks. So I think now they're having to back up and, talk about, well, it's systemic, it's as it passes over your teeth, which is starting to sound like they're still supporting it, but they don't really have the same science behind them that they used to.
And people have shown that the original reason for fluoridation was made up by someone. And I just wanted to point out one thing, because I did a master's in water and air, so water treatment, air quality, and 99% of the water that's delivered to our homes isn't ingested. It's thrown in the garden, down the toilet. So what we're doing is we're spreading this toxic chemical around our environment.
That's exactly right, Peter. And what I'd like to do is just talk for a second about the chemical itself, because this chemical is it's derived from the smokestacks of the phosphate fertilizer industry. So that industry, when they heat up phosphate rock, to make their fertilizer products, it gives off quite a bit of fluoride and some other, nasty contaminants too, like lead and arsenic and even some radioactive particles. Those are fairly small. When they put them in the water, they do get diluted, but the product itself cannot be dumped in rivers, lakes. So these industries, and in North America quite a few of them are based in Florida, and they can't get rid of this chemical easily. In order for it to be disposed of properly, they would have to use large amounts of calcium to bind with it, so it's not going to leach and cause some problems in the environment. So that's a very costly process. I've heard it costs somewhere in the neighborhood of a few $1,000s per ton to use that process. So I don't know if anyone's disposing of it that way or not. Instead, they're selling it to our communities.
They're mass medicating us.
Exactly. So they're selling this to our communities to put it in the water. And what you say about the 99% of it going directly back into the environment is a huge concern, because in, say, the Great Lakes, we already have a level that is just sort of in just about the same level as what we actually recommend for keeping aquatic environment safe. There are plenty of studies that show that there is a change in IQ with moderate levels of fluoride. So we need to be concerned about that, because the fluoride that we're drinking in water, it's not limited in a dosage. It's just in a concentration in the water. So it all depends on how much you drink. And if you're very thirsty, or you're an outside worker, or you're a diabetic, you might want to drink more. If you've got impaired kidney function, you could get a lot more fluoride than the average person would, and that would be of concern. So it may move up to those levels where you might have IQ altering level, especially for children developing. So that's a concern.
And also in the U.S., hasn't there been a recommendation that children under 18 months shouldn't be ingesting fluoridated drinking water?
There's a number of organizations that have recommended if you'd like to reduce the risk of dental fluorosis, then children shouldn't have it prior to their teeth developing.
Right.
So, infants shouldn't have it, and if they're not going to be a breastfed child, they should not be using fluoridated water to reconstitute formula or baby products.
And the dental fluorosis, those are white spots on the teeth.
Right, they're white spots on their teeth, and there's different degrees of it. A lot of it is just very mild, which is just involves the two front teeth, and a very small amount of the white mottled effect. And that's something that Health Canada and the health officials in the communities don't seem to be as concerned as they should. That does indicate that the child's been overdosed with fluoride, that they've received too much. It is the only really obvious sign, but there are lots of other symptoms that a child could have and could contribute later in life, because fluoride and even lead and some of the other products that are in this water product that we use, they are bioaccumulative, so they're going to stay in your body, a lot of it, over a lifetime. So perhaps later in life that's going to cause the person some harm, and we really don't know that. It hasn't been studied fully, so we should be very cautious.
So what can the average citizen do if they're concerned about water fluoridation, or to find out more about this? Yeah,
I think that there's several things people can do. They can educate themselves. There are some really great websites around. The Canadiens Opposed to Fluoridation, which is an organization that I'm involved with.
What is that website?
It's www.COF-COF.ca.
COF-COF.
COF-COF.
That's perfect.
It is. That's one of the symptoms if you inhale fluoride. I've got a couple books here that I find are very interesting. This one here is called The Case Against Fluoride. And the subtitle sort of tells you a little bit about how hazardous waste ended up in our drinking water, the bad science, and the powerful politics that keep it there. This is written by Chris Bryson, who was investigative journalist for the BBC. And this is more about the history of fluoride and kind of what happened back in the 30s, 40s, and what led up to us having fluoride in the water.
Everyone should learn about fluoridated drinking water and what you're drinking. And you should, it's so important for our health. And thank you, Cindy Mayer, for coming today. And I encourage people, check out the website, Canadiens Opposed to Fluoridation. And do you have any final words for us?
Just that if people have a concern, to let their local elected officials know as well. Because I think there's just sort of too much comfort with this issue, because it has been recommended by health officials for so long, and things are changing, and I think that politicians need to have our support to feel comfortable with those changes.
Great.
So let's let them know that.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Green TV on water fluoridation, and we'll look forward to seeing you at the next episode. Thank you.